Will the Premier finally come clean and explain his personal involvement in the Greenbelt scandal?
That's what you call leadership, admitting if there was a mistake, moving forward, and making sure we go on with our agenda.
Back to work after a summer that was anything but sleepy. MPPs return with a provincial government still feeling the heat.
Ain't no power like the power of the people, and the power of the people don't stop. Say what?
Inside and outside Queen's Park, the pressure on the Premier and the big issues looming large at the legislature. Good evening. If there's one word you can't use to describe Ontario politics, it's boring. Just think about how much has happened since the last time that chamber was full.
A contentious couple of months, to say the least, far from a season of rest and renewal for Doug Ford. The Greenbelt scandal casting a shadow on his government. We have extensive coverage tonight. Beth McDonnell with those making their voices heard in person. John Woodward with the calls for a new investigation. And we begin with CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris. Siobhan.
Well, opposition parties had promised to keep up the heat on the government over the Greenbelt file, but Premier Doug Ford looked awfully relaxed in the House today. Still, opposition parties are trying to find new ways to get answers on this. Taking his seat in the legislature for the first time in more than 3 months, the Premier was smiling, cracking jokes about what was to come.
I think politics are tough in the United States. Watch us for the next session.
The opposition trying to keep the Greenbelt scandal that has forced 2 ministers and 2 political staffers to quit in focus.
Will the Premier finally come clean and explain his personal involvement in the Greenbelt scandal?
Doug Ford talked up his government's accomplishments and his apology.
That's what you call leadership, admitting if there was a mistake, moving forward, and making sure we go on with our agenda.
The Premier didn't answer when asked if he'd spoken to the RCMP. The Mounties have been weighing whether to launch an investigation.
And that it now be read for the first time.
Progressive Conservatives killed an NDP bill that would return lands to the Greenbelt. The new Minister of Housing says his own bill to do that is coming later this week. And one more thing.
Anybody that might want to change it in the future will have to present legislation in order to do that, and not through regulation. So it is an extra layer of protection.
Calandra insists taxpayers won't have to cover developers who might be angry about the government's Greenbelt reversal.
There will be no compensation required, and then that will be made available.
Not good enough for New Democrats.
I don't trust this government to fix the mess of their own making, not for a second.
The Green Party leader wants the Integrity Commissioner to launch an inquiry.
Both the Auditor General's report and the Integrity Commissioner's report raise as many questions as they answer.
Schreiner says his goal is to prevent this kind of scandal and breach of trust from happening again. The Office of the Integrity Commissioner says they're taking a look at that request and deciding whether or not to move forward with an inquiry. Tomorrow morning, the NDP leader will announce what steps her party is taking, again, to try to get to answers. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Even as the government backtracks on the Greenbelt, there's another set of developments that could give them a new headache.
CTV's John Woodward is digging into how one controversial change in Hamilton is leading to calls for another investigation for its possible connections to the Premier. John, what have you found?
Raheem, on the same day much of that property was removed from the Greenbelt, other properties were put into city's urban boundaries. So we took a look at some of those properties, their landowner, and how they're connected to the Premier. This property on Whitechurch Road in Hamilton is among those getting ready for a development bonanza. On the same day the province took lands out of the Greenbelt, it put these lands into Hamilton's urban boundary.
They forced the urban boundary to include agricultural lands, to include farmland, to include wetlands. And so it may be that you can now develop on those lands.
Some plots owned by a company whose directors include Sergio Mancia. That's the same developer who had other property removed from the Greenbelt nearby and who the Integrity Commissioner found bought tickets to Premier Ford's daughter's stag and doe party just months before. Documents show the company bought one property in 2021 for $2.9 million, another for $6 million in January 2023. All of this has one Hamilton councillor calling for an investigation.
I'm going to suggest that probably the same processes that were flawed were probably followed for that process. So not pointing any fingers or anything, but just saying that, it probably should be investigated.
Opposition Liberals taking aim at the boundary change.
No one believes the Premier's stories anymore. And the Greenbelt, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the piece that we can see more clearly now. There are a lot more gravy trains on the rails right now in Ontario.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to move the province forward. We're going to create the 1.5 million homes. We're going to make sure that we create economic development and job creation.
Manchia himself denied to CTV News there was anything unethical. It was widely known that the minister might take the action that he did later that fall to impose expansion. We had no inside information. When properties came onto the market that year, we thought it would be a good investment, considering what was publicly known. My company did buy tickets to the Premier's Stag and Doe, but I did not attend, and we had no insider advance knowledge.
We're going to be writing to the Auditor General to investigate this. We're going to be asking hard questions in the legislature. This is not over.
As the Greenbelt scandal enters a new phase. We also have another update to an aspect of this, which is the CTV News investigation that discovered a minister, a premier's aide, and a developer all getting massages together in Las Vegas and not telling the Integrity Commissioner about that. We did our story, 2 of them resigned, and now the Integrity Commissioner says all 3 have provided him new information and testimony regarding that trip. The Integrity Commissioner says he's made no referrals so far on potential perjury. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm John Woodward. Back to you.
Thank you, John. Meanwhile, a protest outside Queen's Park calling on the province to address issues facing frontline healthcare workers.
Demands for improved staffing as well as stopping plans to privatize parts of Ontario's health system. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with more. Beth.
Michelle, this was a large and passionate group. Buses carrying people from across Ontario all came here to oppose private health care. They came by the thousands to Queen's Park to bring their message as the provincial government gets back to work after the summer break.
Yes! Come on, one more time!
Holding signs with their pleas from "We can't afford health care" to "Enough praise, we need a raise," and "Reopen the Minden ER," shut June 1st, leaving the next best option 25 minutes away.
In a cardiac arrest, those minutes count.
The Ontario Health Coalition, an organization working to protect publicly funded health care, organized the protest. It says the province is already facing more than 500 emergency department closures, while hundreds of millions of public funds are being directed to private for-profit clinics.
The Ford government has no mandate to privatize. No one got to vote on that.
The Ford government says when it comes to private options, Ontarians will still be able to use their OHIP card. Today, a spokesperson for the Minister of Health defended its public investment, telling CTV News $80 billion is being injected in the system this year. A system, it says, since 2018 has brought on 63,000 nurses and 8,000 doctors, launched a medical school expansion, and is building thousands of hospital beds. In the crowd, doctors, nurses, and patients like Drew Crumpson, who suffered a spinal cord injury 12 years ago.
Our ICU at Kingston General Hospital is decimated. I spent almost 3 months in there this summer, and there is not enough nurses.
Along with many working people also in attendance, standing up for a system that will have their backs.
The healthcare is not going to be there for us when we're older, and it won't be there for our kids and our grandkids. And by sure as hell, we're not going to let that happen.
Some getting creative for attention. This, a street theater display with teddy bears and skeletons.
If you look at the States, there are people die, they go bankrupt, but here we should have a strong public health care system.
Some voicing hope this government may still change course, like it did with the Greenbelt.
The government was put in by the people. They need to listen to the people.
Arguing it's time to support local public hospitals instead of dismantling them. Organizers say this protest was about setting a tone for the new fall session. They say between 8,000 and 10,000 people attended. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Raheem, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. And our coverage on this story continues on our website. Our online team is tracking every development of this return to Queen's Park. You can find those details at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app.
Turning to federal politics now. In Ottawa, the House of Commons Speaker apologizing today for inviting a man who fought for the Nazis to attend a speech by Ukraine's president.
But some opposition leaders insist the gravity of the mistake warrants more. They want Anthony Rota to resign. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
The day for the Speaker of the House of Commons began with a walk of contrition.
I wish to apologize to the House, and I'm deeply sorry that I've offended many.
But Anthony Rota's apology may not be enough for a mistake with domestic and global implications.
As a descendant of Holocaust survivors whose majority of her family walked in to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and only my grandfather and his brother walked out, that I think this hurt all of us in Parliament.
During the visit of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky last week, the Speaker honored a 98-year-old constituent as a hero.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian-Canadian world veteran from the Second World War.
At the time, the Speaker didn't know the veteran fought for a Nazi military unit responsible for killing thousands of Jews and Poles.
For me, such people should not be present in public life and probably should be prosecuted.
No one, including you, my fellow parliamentarians, or the Ukraine delegation, was privy to my remarks prior to their delivery.
But how can the Speaker moderate debates when he's the issue? The NDP and the Bloc want Rota to step down.
This was an unforgivable error, which puts the entire House in disrepute. And unfortunately, I believe a sacred trust has been broken. It's for that reason, for the good of the institution of the House of Commons, that I say, sadly, I don't believe you can continue in this role.
Meanwhile, the Conservatives put the blame straight on the Prime Minister, saying that his office should have done a better job of vetting.
There was a Nazi in the chamber. There's only one entity, one group that could have done anything about it, that could have flagged that.
Zelensky, raising a fist in support, is being used in Russian propaganda, allowing the Kremlin to falsely advance its claim that its invasion of Ukraine is a fight against fascism.
It's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine.
Despite the mounting pressure, Anthony Rota is staying in the position as Speaker for now. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Straight ahead, breaking news from police identifying the victim of a fatal stabbing near a subway station. While we're learning about the newest case of extreme violence not far from Toronto's transit system. But first, let's head outside for a peek at the evening air as we embark on this first full week of fall. And you may have been going about your day as if it were still summer, thanks to sunshine and warmth. A little bit of cloud in the mix this hour, but there's also some humidity. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions, and even the evening temperatures are above seasonal, Lindsay.
They are, Michelle, and we'll be right through the overnight hours tonight. We're still quite comfortable at this hour. It is 20 degrees here in Toronto. We made it to a high of 24 this afternoon. Winds are coming from the east, and they are a bit gusty to around 30 kilometers per hour. It's going to be a windy day tomorrow as well. There's the cloud that's starting to creep in, mainly for the west end of the GTA. A few showers are possible across extreme southwest Ontario overnight tonight, and perhaps portions of the west GTA too. Here's your evening at a glance in Toronto. 20 degrees, and again, an increase in cloud cover. We'll talk about the pattern that's in store for the rest of this week and heading into the weekend coming up. For now, Raheem, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Coming up, charges dropped. Why all 6 counts have been withdrawn by the Crown after 6 adults died in a horrific crash near Barrie.
Turning to what was a violent weekend in the city, 3 people killed in 2 separate incidents,
including a fatal stabbing near a TTC station. And in the last few minutes, we've learned new details about the victim. CTV's John Musselman is live near Finch Station with more. John.
Well, Raheem, we know he's 23 years old. We don't know exactly where he was stabbed, but police say he was found in the southbound lane of Yonge Street, just across from the Finch subway station. The pedestrian stairwell to the Finch subway station was sealed off with police tape. So too was the area around the passenger pickup on the west side of Yonge Street at Hendon Avenue. Police were called to this area around 10 o'clock last night after reports of a stabbing. The victim has now been identified as 23-year-old Yoyas Magdarilla of Toronto. He was rushed to a trauma center, but he did not survive.
You know, your safety. Even me, if I go home around 11 at night sometimes, I'm scared.
It's really scary and shocking. That doesn't really happen around here, to be perfectly honest. So it's concerning, but I hope that whatever happens, they find out immediately.
We do not know where the victim was stabbed. There was blood visible near the entrance to the subway and at the intersection on Finch. Transit officials say it happened off property. It is possible the victim may have been running from or towards the subway station after it happened. Today, residents and transit users are expressing mixed reaction to this latest violence.
Yeah, safety concerns, I'm always worried.
Look how everywhere you go, he's like have eyes everywhere.
I think that something is going on during nights when it comes, mornings and afternoons, everything is okay.
I'm okay. I don't have any problems, yeah.
Forensic investigators were on scene today gathering any evidence. The Toronto Homicide Squad has taken over the case. No suspect description has been released. And we don't have a motive yet for this murder. Anyone with information is asked to call Toronto Police or Crime Stoppers. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back inside to you.
Thank you, John. On the roads, it's been a deadly 24 hours across our region.
In Brampton, a motorcyclist is dead, colliding with a transport truck early this morning. CTV's Sean Leathong reports.
A collision in the early morning hours. A motorcyclist slamming into a tractor trailer, leaving one man dead.
We located an adult male motorcyclist with significant injuries. He was treated on scene but succumbed to his injuries.
Family members and friends identify the victim as 59-year-old Harry Bahadur of Brampton, a father of two and truck driver. According to Peel Police, the collision happened just before 4 this morning at the intersection of Airport Road and Clark Boulevard in Brampton.
So my understanding is that the tractor trailer was traveling northbound on Airport, turning left to go westbound on Clark Boulevard. The motorcyclist was traveling southbound on Airport Road.
Family says Bahadur worked as a truck driver and was driving his motorcycle to work this morning when the crash took place. So far, police cannot say if speed or traffic signals played a factor. The transport truck was located in the westbound lanes of Clark Boulevard with slight damage to the back end. According to police, the driver is cooperating with the investigation. Peel Police Major Collision Bureau is investigating along with forensics as police try to determine the circumstances leading to the crash.
I'm told by the Major Collision Bureau investigators there are cameras in the area.
Police are asking anyone who may have dash cam footage to please contact them. So far, no charges have been laid. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
Meanwhile, a tragic scene on Highway 400 today. A man struck and killed after getting out of his car that had broken down.
Parts of the road coming to a standstill for much of the day. CTV's Rob Cooper reports.
Police received the 911 call just before 8:30 as the Monday morning commute was in full swing. Police say a 63-year-old Barrie man was struck and killed in the southbound lanes moments after he got out of his vehicle.
The vehicle began to sputter, break down, ended up stopping in a live lane at the construction zone. There's no shoulders to speak of.
The man was struck as he tried to re-enter his vehicle on the busy highway.
And upon his re-entry to the vehicle, was struck by a passing pickup truck that was pulling a trailer.
The passenger in the car and the driver and passenger in the pickup truck were not injured. The highway was shut down for several hours as police pieced together what happened. Police say the exact circumstances are still not known, but they encourage people to stay inside their vehicle if it breaks down on a highway.
Find a safe location to stop. Don't get out of your vehicle. The best place for you to be typically is inside the safety cage of your vehicle. Being outside, you're ultimately vulnerable to anything coming by you. Depending on the circumstances where you are, if you think you have the ability to get out of the vehicle, away from traffic, that is something you need to determine based on your own skills and abilities. But usually the best place is to stay in your vehicle.
Now, the southbound lanes to Highway 400 were reopened just after 2 this afternoon. Police are asking anyone who may have been driving by at the time with a dash cam to come forward. Rob Cooper, CTV News, Innisfil.
It's a stunning decision. It's been 14 months since 6 people lost their lives when they crashed into a Barrie construction site.
Tonight, all 6 counts of criminal negligence causing death withdrawn by the Crown. CTV's Mike Arcelides has the details.
More than a year has passed since the lives of Curtis King, River Wells, Luke West, Jersey Mitchell, Haley Marin, and Jason Ono O'Connor ended here along Mackay Road in this construction site in Barrie's South End, when a car containing all 6 young people plunged into a 60-foot concrete hole. They were discovered about a day later.
Barrie police located a single fatal motor vehicle collision scene.
I need answers. I just want to hold them one more time, and I can't even do that.
Desperate for answers, their loved ones have visited the site in the days and months that followed. Their friends and family members celebrating their lives, trying to remain strong, heartbroken.
She was my firstborn, my daughter. Extremely hard. But I know she'd want us to live on in her memory as well.
Back in January, Barrie police charged construction company the Condrain Group with 6 counts of criminal negligence causing their deaths. Today, those charges were withdrawn. The Crown telling the court new evidence discovered by the defense left it with no reasonable prospect for conviction. Toronto defense lawyer Marie Hennon representing Condrain, which is one of the largest construction companies in Canada, providing this statement to CTV News, saying, Condrain has always had confidence in the justice system, and this matter would conclude as it has today. Our thoughts are with the families of those that lost their lives and the Barrie community. We remain committed to the community and moving forward from this heartbreaking tragedy. Those now withdrawn charges allege the construction company failed to properly sign and barricade the temporarily closed stretch of Mackay Road between Veterans Drive and County Road 27. Neither the Crown nor Condrain's lawyers clarified what the evidence was that led to the charges being dropped. CTV News reached out to loved ones of those who lost their lives on that day. One person telling us, while they have a lot to say, now is not the time. Mike Arsleedy, CTV News, Barrie.
General Motors is up next. Unifor announced today the automaker will be the second target company in negotiations on a new collective bargaining agreement.
Our expectation is that General Motors will follow the pattern set at Ford. Now, you may wonder why General Motors. I'm going to tell you. Just as we had with Ford Motor Company, we hold a lot of negotiating leverage with GM right now. Their Oshawa facility is working around the clock, producing very lucrative pickup trucks. The St. Catharines engine and transmission facility, like Ford's powertrain operations, is a linchpin for GM's North American operations. Our Woodstock distribution center is also a key element of the company's parts network.
Canada's largest private sector union says it will be at the bargaining table with GM tomorrow. The decision comes after members ratified a labor agreement with Ford Canada. The 3-year deal includes raises, pension and benefit improvements, and 2 new paid holidays. It will serve as a blueprint for talks with General Motors, but a narrow 54% voted in favor of the new Ford contract. And experts say that could make reaching an agreement with GM more challenging.
In Ukraine, airstrikes killed 6 people and caused significant damage to infrastructure today. One of the attacks destroyed grain storage facilities and damaged the seaport in Odessa. The facilities that were hit contained almost 1,000 tons of grain, and damage to power grids cut off power to more than 1,000 customers in the region. Kyiv says the strikes against port and grain facilities are intended to prevent it from exporting grain to the world.
8 current and former officials in the Libyan city of Derna have been detained following the devastating floods. They are being held on suspicion of mismanagement and negligence. It follows the collapse of 2 dams overwhelmed during a storm 2 weeks ago. The breaches sent water through the center of the coastal city. Government officials and aid agencies have given estimated death totals ranging from more than 4,000 to over 11,000.
The RCMP says its presence is no longer needed. So the Mounties' last remaining building at Quebec's Roxham Road was torn down today. The structure was intended to last a few years, but it is no longer needed because the number of asylum seekers crossing the border southeast of Montreal has slowed dramatically. About 113,000 people used the rural road since 2017 to enter Quebec from upstate New York, but it's down to about 14 a week in the area. The unofficial crossing was shut down in March.
An exceptional deal with meaningful gains. That is how the striking writers' contract agreement is being described by its union.
The WGA has a tentative deal with film, television, and streaming services. Our Andrea Case joins us now. Andrea, should we be getting ready to watch our favorite TV shows once again?
No, Michelle, you should not. Not so fast. Late night television could be back on the air by October 2nd, but will people tune in after 5 months of no new shows and actors who would appear as guests are still on strike? For the 11,000 members of the Writers Guild of America, last night was a time to celebrate. After 146 days on the picket line in New York and Los Angeles, it came down to a marathon 5-day negotiating session. The Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, along with major studio heads and negotiators for the Writers Guild of America, struck a 3-year deal on Sunday. In a statement, the WGA wrote this deal is exceptional, with meaningful gains for writers in every sector of the membership. Details have not been released, but it is reported the agreement includes increases in residuals from streaming, higher wages, shared ratings numbers, and protections from AI.
Essentially, what this means is that talk shows and game shows can come back once this deal is ratified.
University of Toronto professor of cinema studies Charlie Kill says an agreement south of the border doesn't mean it'll be business as usual here.
But I think for the Canadian industry, the main question is going to be how much of this cutting of the overall, let's say, future production scope will affect Canadian companies.
In addition to the writers' strike, 160,000 actors hit the bricks on July 14th.
Super worried, but I'm more worried about the crew members. You know, the makeup, the hair, the grips, the electrics. You know, people who work the long hours and have nowhere to go right now. Nowhere to go while we fight this out.
With a deal in hand, negotiations have yet to begin for actors.
I think the unions won, or at least the first union has won big on this. And so I expect SAG-AFTRA is going to expect the same thing.
And even once a deal is made for those in front of the camera, it's estimated it could take months before your favorite series will return. Okay, with one strike over, so far the cost to the industry has been $5 billion. Now, writers have put down their picket signs, but their union is asking them to continue to support the actors by walking in solidarity with them, just as they were supported over the weeks and months of the writers' strike. Reporting for CTV News, I'm Andrea Case. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Andrea. Also tonight, Leafs preseason action. The Buds back from Ottawa on home ice tonight, where new players will have a chance to familiarize themselves with Leafs Nation.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, the majority of Canadians bank online, but a Mississauga businessman says he doesn't because he's worried about fraud. But he just got caught in a check cashing scam and lost almost $40,000. I'll have my reports just ahead.
The Atlantic hurricane season continues. This rain that you see in the northeastern United States, that's what's left of Ophelia. We also have Tropical Storm Philippe. It is not currently a threat to land, but it's one that we're going to be watching through the rest of this week. We're also watching your local forecast. We'll show you just how warm it could get in the long range coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
While the majority of Canadians bank online, about 10% of the population still likes to go into the branch for banking transactions.
Some customers prefer in-person banking because they believe it is a less risk of fraud, but it can still happen. Here's Pat Foran with Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Raheem. And Michelle, a Mississauga businessman says he doesn't bank online because he's worried about scams. But recently, someone cashed fraudulent checks, and because he only gets his statement once a month, the bank is refusing to return his money. Joe John runs Guy Can Machine Works, a Mississauga machine shop that's been in business for 30 years. He builds equipment to hold glass and boards for sporting arenas.
So this is all over North America, all over the world. These things are being shipped.
John says he's always been nervous about online banking, which is why he only banks in person.
I feel that, you work hard, you put your money in the bank, it's in the bank. That's why I don't have online banking, because of the fraud.
But recently, someone copied one of his checks and created 8 fraudulent ones. Using mobile banking, they drained his business account of more than $60,000.
There's another check here for $9,000.
TD Bank did an investigation and refunded 2 of the bad checks, but said because John didn't report the fraudulent activity right away, he's responsible for $38,000. TD told him, "Regrettably, your claim has been declined as we did not receive it within the required time period, which is detailed in your product agreement."
The bank is saying that they're not going to give me my money because I didn't report it in 48 hours. How would I report it in 48 hours? I don't have online banking.
John said he only gets his bank statement once a month. He's shocked he has to cover the $38,000 loss and says he'll have to close his business.
It comes out of the poor working guy's bank account, and the bank says it's your problem.
TD Bank said it's investigating John's case and told CTV News customers need to check your account statements regularly to ensure there are no discrepancies. And if a customer believes they have fallen victim to a scam or fraud, they should report it immediately to their financial institution. John said he wants his money back before he's forced to close his shop.
I need to get my money back. I need the banks to take responsibility for their actions so other people don't have the same problem that I have.
And John feels he should have been told to monitor his bank account every 2 days to check for fraud. He says the only way he could do that would be to sign up for online banking, something he still doesn't want to do. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, take a look at that sky behind us right now. A beautiful color and a beautiful start to the summer. Fall, that is. It feels like summer.
Yeah, it really does. We're being treated to exceptional weather for this time of year. It's above seasonal, and really, if you have plans to do patios, even pools, it does work in the week ahead.
It's been a sensational September. Dare I say, I think some people are ready for a little bit of rain. Have you noticed the lawn becoming a little parched? It's been almost 2 weeks since we've had any precipitation here in the city of Toronto. Here's the thing. Overnight tonight, some areas, mainly West GTA and then southwestern Ontario, could get a few sprinkles. But other than that, there's no measurable rain in the forecast over the next 7 days. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. But yes, many of us have been enjoying the sunshine, the warm temperatures. Look at this. Many communities across southern Ontario still in the 20s at this hour. 20 degrees on the nose in the city of Toronto, as well as Muskoka, Windsor, still 21 for you in the Trenton area. Overnight tonight, this is pretty warm for this time of year. 15 is our forecast low. Average overnight low is about 9. We have seen an increase in cloud cover over the last hour or so, and we can expect that to continue. And then that 30% chance of showers that you see here for tomorrow, that is mainly for the morning. Again, across southwestern Ontario, maybe creeping as far as Hamilton, Burlington, Oakville. Otherwise, though, it should be pretty dry. 19 is what we're calling for in Whitby, 20 degrees in Georgina. And then here's a look at what you can expect in some eastern communities. 19 degrees for you in the Scugog area. So 19, that's a little bit of a cool down compared to the last couple of days, but technically it's seasonal, and tomorrow's looking like a great day to enjoy some fun on the farm. As the day goes on, that cloud cover that we could see in the morning, it is expected to clear and will be mostly sunny by the afternoon. Here's our current satellite and radar. You can see the cloud cover. You can see a few showers inching their way closer toward Niagara region, around the city of London and over toward Windsor. Here's how this is all going to play out. So this disturbance just sweeps its way from east to west, which is a little unusual for low pressure systems. We have a bit of a blocking pattern happening, which is keeping our weather from changing all that much. Little snapshot of midnight. There's the west end of the GTA and that chance of showers. Maybe bring your patio cushions in just in case. Waking up tomorrow morning, there's 7 a.m., so a heads up for you in London over towards Sarnia. Beautiful clearing for the GTA into the afternoon. And then Wednesday's looking like another mix of sun and cloud kind of day. Mainly sunny skies, in fact, are in the forecast right through the next 7. And notice the daytime highs at or slightly above seasonal. And then as we make our way into October, that begins on Sunday. Look at Monday, daytime high 26 degrees. Some areas are going to be even warmer than that. That's your look at the weather for now. Rahim, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, breaking down healthcare barriers. Could simple at-home test kits be part of the solution for those who struggle to access services? The new recommendation in moments.
This has made you a target.
5 crucial questions to expose the truth. Who's at risk?
Your life is in danger. Yeah, it is.
What needs to change?
He made a mistake. That's stunning.
When will justice be done?
The horrible nightmare. This can't be true.
Where's the proof?
Forensic evidence always tells the truth.
Why did this happen? One team uncovers the stories that need to be told.
Canadians should be very concerned.
Watch W5 at a new day and time this October on CTV.
A new study in the Canadian Medical Association Journal is looking at the factors contributing to inequalities in the healthcare system.
And CTV's Pauline Chan tells us it's recommending the adoption of several home test kits as a way of increasing access to diagnostics for vulnerable groups.
Even in a city like Toronto, where a wide range of health services are present, barriers such as transportation, employment, childcare, language, and racism can keep many from accessing those services.
We wanted to make some specific recommendations about how to address health inequities through preventive care, like cancer screening.
One of the recommendations is to expand the use of accurate and easy home test kits.
I don't know anybody who enjoys the Pap test.
Dr. Aisha Lofter says a significant number of people who are eligible for cervical cancer screening, some 35%, just don't come in for testing.
Maybe you have to take 2 or 3 buses to get to your doctor's office. Maybe you have a history of trauma. Maybe it's gender disaffirming. Maybe your practitioner is a male and there's just too many issues around modesty or privacy.
But an HPV self-collection kit being piloted in BC allows patients to test for the virus associated with cervical cancer from the privacy of their own home.
We know you're never going to reach 100%. There are always going to be people who choose not to for whatever reason, but that gap is pretty large. We've got a long way to go.
The group is also calling for testing for colorectal cancer, already available in home test kits, to be started at age 45 instead of age 50. And for newcomers from places where tuberculosis is endemic, a blood test for diagnosis instead of the less accurate skin test, which requires more than one medical appointment.
Yeah, we're talking about a human right here, access to health. That's going to help people who are experiencing disadvantages and difficulty accessing care. But also in the long run, this is going to be good for everyone. And it certainly is going to save the healthcare system money.
Earlier diagnosis means saving lives and saving long-term costs. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Meanwhile, a new report says nearly 2,800 Canadian children are waiting for surgery related to scoliosis, a curvature of the spine.
We're talking about disease progression and a risk of really irreversible developmental changes in certain conditions if they're not promptly addressed, and an increased strain on overall health system resources, with more complex surgeries needing to be performed and longer rehabilitation pathways for kids who have these surgeries late. Not to mention the prolonged suffering and pain of the children themselves and emotional distress of families.
The study focused on wait times for the surgery, which varies by province. In Nova Scotia, an estimated 68% of the operations are done beyond the recommended 6-month time frame. The report calls for more pediatric surgeons and nurses and a central referral system. It was done by Children's Healthcare Canada and the Conference Board of Canada.
The Public Health Agency of Canada has approved a vaccine to prevent Ebola, but it's not meant for routine immunization or vaccination before travel. The single-dose vaccine should be offered to people who have been exposed to the virus in Canada. PHAC says the risk of that is very low. It can also be considered for use in pregnant or immunocompromised people and infants and children after exposure.
In the UK, a sex crimes investigation of Russell Brand has been launched. London police say it received a number of allegations following a TV documentary and newspaper stories. They did not name the comedian, but say detectives are investigating accusations of non-recent sexual offenses in the capital and elsewhere. Brand has denied the accusations.
Film legend Sophia Loren is recovering in hospital after a fall. The Italian star underwent surgery for a broken hip and thigh bone. The Oscar winner fell in the bathroom of her home in Switzerland yesterday. A spokesperson says the operation went well and indicated Loren will be fine following some rest and recovery. She has lived in a Swiss villa near Lake Geneva for decades and celebrated her 89th birthday last week.
A lawsuit against the creators of Better Call Saul has been dismissed.
It says here
You were a lawyer until not that long ago. What changed?
Liberty Tax Service filed a defamation and trademark infringement suit. It alleged a shady fictional tax firm depicted in the show appeared to resemble its own. But a Manhattan judge has ruled the company offered no compelling allegations that viewers would be confused into thinking that. And the use of Liberty Tax's trademarks was to advance the plot, not disparage the firm.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
On the next CP24 breakfast, Platinum Blonde is Canadian rock royalty and one of the 13 groups entering Canada's Walk of Fame. We'll catch up with Mark Holmes on the next CP24 breakfast, up first at 5:30.
That's what you call leadership, admitting if there was a mistake, moving forward, and making sure we go on with our agenda.
Updating our top stories after a contentious summer, the fall session of the Ontario legislature kicked off today. Premier Ford was met with growing criticism from opposition leaders over the Greenbelt scandal and from healthcare workers over issues that plague their staff.
I wish to apologize to the House, and I'm deeply sorry that I've offended many.
In Ottawa, the House of Commons Speaker apologized today for inviting a man who fought for the Nazis to attend a speech by Ukraine's president on Friday. Critics condemning members of parliament for giving 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka a standing ovation.
Even me, if I go home around 11 at night sometimes, I'm scared.
Toronto police have identified a man fatally stabbed near Finch Station as Joshua McDrilla. It happened just before 10 last night near Yonge Street and Hendon Avenue. Investigators have yet to release a suspect description.
In business, fears of inflation and heavy government debt loads are looming over the stock market. With more, here's Andrew Bell from BNN Bloomberg.
Hello there. North American stocks edged higher today, but there was yet another sell-off in the market for government bonds. And that's often a sign that investors are worried about a continuing rise in prices. Bond yields go up when the price of the bond goes down. And the yield on the benchmark 10-year note in the United States topped 4.5%, which was the highest since late 2007. U.S. stocks have slid about 4% so far in September, with Toronto down about 2.5%. U.S. federal officials warned last week that at least one more interest rate increase is in the cards to combat stubborn inflation. Let's check in on the markets. The Canadian dollar changed hands at 74.3 cents U.S., up about 0.1 cent. WTI oil, the North American benchmark, was at $89.68 U.S. a barrel, down 35 cents. Western Canadian Select oil changed hands at $71.60, down 24 cents. And the TSX finished the first session of the week at 19,800.61, up just under 21 points. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
In sports, the Toronto Maple Leafs face off against Ottawa again tonight, this time in front of a home crowd. The Buds scored twice but fell to the Senators 3-2 in the nation's capital last night. It was the first exhibition game for both teams. Toronto plays a total of 8 preseason games before opening the regular season on October 11th against Montreal.
Canada's women's soccer team is also in town, getting ready for tomorrow night's huge match at BMO Field.
Grosso, her pass for Carl, trying to set up Leon in front, and is a massive goal for the Canadians.
The Canadians beat host Jamaica 2-0 Friday night in the first of a 2-game Olympic qualifier. Whichever team scores the most goals over the 2 matches will be headed to Paris next summer. The winner of the qualifier also books their ticket to the inaugural 2024 CONCACAF W Gold Cup.
And the Honda Indy will be staged in Toronto for a 36th year. Canada's only IndyCar race is one of 17 on the schedule announced today by the IndyCar Series. It will take place from July 19th to the 21st at Exhibition Place. The 2024 IndyCar Series season starts March 10th with the Firestone Grand Prix in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Tonight, breaking the deadlock. Hollywood writers reach a tentative deal, but still no resolution in the actors' dispute. what it means for the return of popular shows. We'll have a look at that story and more later on CTV National News.
A reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight, and a special hello to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
One of the world's most iconic works of art is getting a dusting. Michelangelo's statue of David in Florence, Italy, is more than 500 years old, and it is a treasure. So no surprise it undergoes a regular, meticulous cleaning. Dust is carefully removed with brushes as electronic purifiers clean the room's air. The work is essential because dust and filaments from visitors' clothing can darken the statue. So could humidity from their breathing. Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I would love to, though. It's on the bucket list.
Oh, it was on our honeymoon. Amazing. And it's way bigger than you think.
It is. They have to be very careful doing that job, I imagine.
So weather-wise, what are we working with here in Canada, Ontario?
Yeah, well, it's not looking too bad the next day or so here. In fact, one more look at the satellite and radar shows an increase in cloud for us, a few showers to our south and to our west. Likely not to impact us in Toronto directly tonight, maybe a couple of sprinkles of rain, but it's pretty dry, so you might need to do some watering of the lawn and garden tomorrow. If you're out enjoying the mix of sun and cloud and once again the seasonal temperatures, there's one more look at the 7-day forecast. It's pretty dry. Raheem and Michelle.
Looks fabulous. Thank you, Lindsay. Well, that's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.